any right-minded person understands that crony capitalism is harmful for the economy, it's harmful for jobs. I think what we have to debate is how do we create the right kind of systems, the right kind of regulations. We in India as a country are still evolving economically. We're still as a government building institutional capacity. I think it's very easy to point fingers, call people names, try and even harm the India story. But I think what politicians at least should be debating, rather than personalizing debates, is how do we as a country build the right kind of institutional capacity that will ensure that crony capitalism doesn't exist, doesn't flourish in our country, regardless of who's in power.
Now, there is a certain belief, and I'd like your opinion on it, that India Inc. has somehow been alienated by the Congress, be it the investigative agencies targeting corporate India. You interact with a lot of the industry leaders. Is that the feedback that you're getting to some extent?
Well, the feedback I get, of course, and is that in the last decade of Congress-led UPA government, the economy has done extremely well. I mean, the country has grown at an average rate of 7.7%. Per capita incomes have moved from 20,000 rupees to 70,000 rupees, more than 3x. Of course, the last quarter of that 10-year period has been bumpy, it's been turbulent. It's been turbulent politically, it's been turbulent economically. We can't deny that. But there are many, many reasons why that happened. And I think what I try and do is I try and explain to people what those reasons are, because people tend to say it's policy paralysis or the government wasn't serious about things. And I'm trying to explain to people that there's no policy paralysis. There might be parliament paralysis, where the opposition is trying to hold parliament hostage and prevent bills from being passed. But the policies are there. The government has enacted various policies, but the government also needs parliament to make sure that those are converted into legislations. That's something, unfortunately, where the opposition has behaved extremely irresponsible. Secondly, we cannot deny the fact that India is not an insulated, isolated country. We are part of the global community. If countries like the US and Europe and their economies shrink, it's going to have a huge impact on certain sectors in our country. My own ministry, for example, the Ministry of Communications and IT, which is an export-driven sector and exports largely to these countries, of course was affected by the global financial crisis. We had the worst financial crisis that the world has ever seen since 1929. That was caused by reckless lending by banks. And we still, as a country and as a government, to a large extent insulated, protected the Indian economy. Growth rates fell from about 10% to about 5%. We could have done better, I don't deny it, but we were faced with extraordinary circumstances, factors both local and global.
What has been your opinion of the entitled-based promises by the Congress with respect to right to health, housing, which some would argue enlarges the fiscal gap, or even, in the recent manifesto, the extending of job reservation to the private sector, which would in fact adversely impact the industry?
Well, firstly, we haven't said there should be reservation in the private sector. We've said, as a manifesto, which is really a statement of intent, let's explore what we can do to give people belonging to backward communities more of a say, more of a place in the private sector. We are a party of reformers. We are a party that has reformed the economy. We're a party that in '91 brought about economic reforms which have fundamentally changed the country. We're a political party that spoke about IT modernization back in the 80s. And at the same time, the BJP, which is supposedly a pro-reform and a economic-driven party, was dead against that. When we inherited government in 2004, the fiscal deficit was at about 5.5% of GDP, and we brought it down in the last 10 years to 3.9%, in spite of spending heavily on social sector.